Money didn't just fail once in history, it ran wild, devouring entire economies in silence. Subscribe now, because what happened in the 1620s is whispering straight into our digital future. We like to believe that currency collapse is a modern disease, born from algorithms, central banks, and trillion-dollar debts. But 400 years ago, Europe already lived through a monetary nightmare so violent it shattered trust itself. The Kipper und Wipper crisis wasn't just inflation. It was a controlled demolition of money, and its fingerprints are all over the system we live inside today. The coins didn't scream when they were cut. They only sang a little lighter. In the early 1620s, across the patchwork of German states and fragile principalities of the Holy Roman Empire, silver coins quietly began to lose weight. Not in the obvious way, not enough that the average merchant could immediately detect it with the naked eye. Just enough to pass through hands without panic. Just enough to buy one more sack of grain. Just enough to pay one more regiment. War was the excuse. The 30 Years' War had turned Europe into a furnace. Armies didn't just march, they consumed. Food, horses, armor, wages. Governments were drowning inside costs they could no longer tax their way out of. And like every government cornered by reality, they searched for something easier than truth. They found the mint. Rulers quickly realized they didn't need more silver to make more money. They only needed the appearance of silver. By melting older coins and mixing them with copper, tin, anything they could dilute the metal with, they could strike twice as many coins from the same supply, sometimes 3 times as many. The stamp stayed legitimate. The face of the rulers still gleamed, but the weight of reality vanished. At first, it felt like prosperity. Markets flooded with fresh currency. Soldiers were paid. Debts were settled. Trade appeared to revive. Taverns filled. Bells rang. The illusion worked, because money is trust before it is metal, and trust, at first, obeyed. But sound has a way of carrying through walls. Merchants began to notice something strange. The same sack of wheat cost more coins week after week. Not because the wheat had changed, but because the coin no longer spoke the same truth. Foreign traders rejected local currency. Good money vanished into hordes. Only the worst coins circulated. Silver disappeared. Copper reigned. Traveling currency brokers, the Kippers, rode from town to town tipping scales, testing coins, flipping value at lightning speed. Wherever weak coin appeared, they extracted silver, remelted it, debased it further, and sent it onward. The system became a traveling plague of dilution. And the whippers, the minters, worked day and night. Their hammers never rested. Their furnaces glowed with the bones of money. Within months, prices doubled, then doubled again, then accelerated so fast that price charts began to look vertical long before charts would exist to describe them. A loaf of bread at dawn cost 3 coins. By nightfall it cost 8. Wages were paid daily, sometimes twice a day, but each wage bought less than the last. Housewives raced markets like gamblers racing collapsing roulette wheels. Farmers refused coins altogether. Barter returned. Trust evaporated. Money was no longer a store of value. It was a melting ice cube. Those closest to the mints, court officials, nobles, military contractors, spent the new money first. They bought land, art, gold, food stores, horses, everything real. Everyone else received the coin only when its purchasing power had already rotted from inside. The Cantillon effect was alive centuries before the name would exist. Inflation wasn't just economic. It was psychological. Rage followed panic. Panic followed confusion. Confusion followed denial. People began to accuse bakers of hoarding, merchants of conspiracy, foreigners of sabotage. No one blamed the mint at first, because the mint was invisible power. Riots erupted. City councils collapsed. Entire principalities ground to a halt in transactional paralysis. Contracts meant nothing when tomorrow's money could no longer be predicted today. The economic bloodstream turned septic. And yet the presses never stopped. Because once a state learns it can print resources out of trust rather than metal, stopping feels like assembly line suicide. What makes the Kipper und Wipper crisis so dangerous to modern eyes is not its scale, but its structure. The same logic that powers today's digital liquidity already lived inside those smoky medieval workshops. Create money faster than reality can absorb it. Spend it before it decays. Let the public absorb the loss silently through rising prices rather than explicit taxation. Sound familiar? By 1623, the collapse was undeniable. Some regions saw prices rise by over 1,000%. Entire life savings vanished without a single physical robbery. The middle class didn't revolt because they were angry, they revolted because they were ruined. Eventually, the rulers panicked. Debasement was outlawed overnight. New, sound coinage was demanded. Debased currency was called in and devalued. Markets froze. Credit evaporated. The hangover after monetary intoxication was worse than the binge itself. But the damage could not be reversed. The silver was gone. The trust was shattered. The social fabric was permanently scarred. Something more dangerous than inflation had occurred. The population had learned that money was a political weapon. And once that lesson is learned, it is never forgotten. Europe staggered forward into a new era of finance, carrying the trauma quietly beneath its institutions. Monetary discipline would return in name, but the temptation of control had already been tasted. Future kingdoms would inflate. Future empires would cheat metal. Future governments would repeat the same sin in new technological clothing. Paper would replace silver. Digital entries would replace paper. But the architecture of deception would remain intact. The Kipper and Wipper collapse was not a medieval anomaly. It was the first full-scale rehearsal of modern monetary manipulation. And it proved something chilling. You don't need to destroy a nation's armies to collapse an economy. You only need to corrupt its measuring stick. The coins didn't lose their value overnight. They lost their soul first. In towns that once rang with the honest clatter of silver, something began to sound different, lighter, thinner. Merchants could hear it before they could prove it. The ring of the coin had changed. What once struck stone with weight now whispered when it fell. And people, long before economics had textbooks, understood the language of metal. They knew when they were being lied to. At first it felt like a trick only rulers were playing on each other. Princes debasing to fund wars. Emperors stretching silver a little thinner to pay soldiers a little faster. But the trick didn't stay in palaces. It leaked into bakeries, into taverns, into church donation boxes, and then into the hands of ordinary families who suddenly found that yesterday's money could no longer buy today's bread. The Holy Roman Empire at the dawn of the 17th century looked powerful on maps. Hundreds of tiny states stitched together by banners, bloodlines, and old loyalties. But beneath it all was tension, religious, political, financial. The 30 Years' War was beginning to smolder, and war is a furnace that consumes money first and body second. Rulers faced a problem as old as power itself. They needed to pay for violence without admitting they were bankrupt. Taxes had limits. Loans carried consequences. So they turned to the oldest invisible weapon in history, the silent shaving of money. Silver coins were clipped, diluted, reminted. A dozen different authorities issued coins that looked legitimate but weighed less each month. Each ruler promised stability while quietly offloading weakness into the system. It was financial pollution, and soon the rivers were poisoned. People began to notice that prices weren't just rising, they were breaking free. A chicken that cost 1 coin in January demanded 3 by spring. By summer, 5. By autumn, no one even asked for a price without first weighing the coin in their hand. Trust evaporated faster than metal. The phrase kippen meant to tip the scales. Wippen meant to swing. Merchants began carrying balance scales into the streets. Every transaction became an accusation. Every sale became a test of loyalty. Was your coin honest? Or was it a lie pretending to be money? And here's the sickness of it. Once people realized bad money could chase away good money, they began to game the rot. They hoarded the pure coins. They traded the corrupted ones. They learned that in a sick system, integrity makes you poor. Good silver vanished into floorboards and burial jars. Debased coins flooded the markets. What remained in circulation was the worst money. Light, thin, suspicious, and yet it was all most people had. This is how collapse really begins. Not with riots, not with screaming, but with quiet arithmetic, with a subtle mismatch between effort and reward, with the eerie feeling that the numbers on the table no longer mean what they used to. By 1621, entire cities were trapped in a feedback loop with no exit. Prices rose because money was bad. Money grew worse because prices rose. Wages tried to keep up, but always arrived late. People were paid in the morning and rushed to spend by midday, because by evening the coin would already be worth less. Time itself became unstable. Farmers refused to bring food to market unless paid in pure silver, which no one had. Urban workers starved while storehouses in the countryside remained full. Trade routes froze not from lack of goods, but from lack of believable money. And behind it all, the rulers blamed each other. Every prince accused the next of starting the debasement. Every mint swore its coins were honest. And every army kept demanding payment, and whatever metal still carried the illusion of value. This wasn't just economic decay, it was social unraveling. Mothers sold family heirlooms for bread that spoiled in hours. Soldiers were paid with junk silver and stole to compensate. Judges took bribes openly because bribes were the only currency that still worked. The idea of a fair price dissolved. Everything became negotiable. Everything became desperate. What happened next was inevitable. The moment trust in money collapses, power shifts from institutions to survivors. Barter replaced commerce. Violence replaced law. Rumors replaced contracts. People stopped believing in tomorrow because tomorrow's coin could not be trusted to exist in the same value. And here's the most dangerous part. The system didn't implode from one decision. It collapsed from thousands of quiet decisions that all made sense individually. A ruler debasing to survive. A merchant cheating to protect inventory. A farmer hoarding to avoid ruin. Each action rational. The overall result catastrophic. By 1623, entire regions of Germany were economically unrecognizable. The same cities that had thrived on trade now became graveyards of commerce. Markets opened only to close again within hours. Bread riots flared and vanished. No one trusted posted prices. No one trusted official numbers. Everyone trusted only weight. And when money becomes something you weigh instead of something you believe, civilization is already sliding backward. Even when authorities finally tried to fix it, issuing emergency, honest coinage, cracking down on fake mints, threatening punishment, the damage was already embedded in psychology. People had learned a brutal lesson. Value was temporary, promises were expensive, and survival favored the fast and the cynical. Stability returned eventually. New coins were struck. Standards were reimposed. But the memory of the collapse remained etched into the instincts of an entire generation. They never forgot what it felt like to wake up in a world where money still existed, but meaning had left it. And this is where the story stops being ancient. Because what the Kipper and Wipper crisis truly revealed was not a flaw in silver. It exposed a flaw in human systems of trust. The metal was never the anchor. Belief was. Once that belief broke, no emperor, no mint, no proclamation could put it back together cleanly. The machinery of collapse didn't require computers. It didn't require derivatives. It didn't require central banks. It required only three ingredients: pressure, secrecy, and enough time for people to notice the lie. And every modern financial system still runs on those same three forces. Good. Picking up right where the tension thickens. By the early 1620s, the deception was no longer subtle. Every market stall, every tavern table, every church tithe box began to whisper the same quiet terror. The money felt wrong in the hand. Coins that once rang with silver now landed with a dull, sickly thud. Merchants weighed every piece, clipped the edges, tested them with teeth and daggers and acid. Trust didn't vanish all at once. It leaked out slowly, day by day, transaction by transaction, like blood from a hidden wound no one wanted to admit was fatal. Behind palace walls, rulers spoke a different language. To them, this was not theft. It was survival. The 30 Years' War was devouring treasuries faster than taxes could be raised. Armies had to be fed. Cannons had to be cast. Mercenaries had to be paid. And mercenaries didn't accept moral arguments in lieu of coin. So the presses kept turning. Silver was stretched thinner and thinner like watered wine at a desperate feast. Each new coin looked familiar, bore the correct stamp, but carried less and less of the metal that gave it life. And the people felt it long before they could explain it. Prices began to behave strangely at first, then violently. A loaf of bread that cost 1 coin in the morning cost 3 by afternoon. By the next day, it cost 5. Wages lagged behind by weeks that felt like years. Farmers refused coin and demanded goods instead. Barter crept back into Europe like a ghost from the medieval past. Chickens for cloth, firewood for salt, labor for grain. Money, the great lubricant of civilization, began to seize. In Nuremberg, in Cologne, in Frankfurt, the same scenes repeated. Crowds gathered around assayers' tables as men in dark coats tested coins in full view of the public. Tempers flared. Fists followed. The accusation was always the same. Someone, somewhere, was stealing the value out of the people's lives. And they were right. But the thief was invisible, hidden behind seals and signatures and sovereign authority. The word Kipper itself came from the sound of the scales tipping in fraudulent weighing. Wipper from the seesaw rhythm of false exchange. It was economic poetry written in metal and hunger. And once the game began, it spread faster than armies ever could. Each princeling feared being the last honest actor left holding real silver while rivals flooded their economies with diluted coin. What began as emergency policy turned into monetary warfare. Debase or be destroyed. Cheat or be conquered. The psychological damage cut deeper than the material loss. What broke was not only price stability, it was the shared mental agreement that money meant something across time. A craftsman who saved for 20 years found his life's work dissolved in weeks. Dowries prepared for daughters turned into scrap. Church offerings lost their sacred weight. Even death became more expensive. Burial fees rose so fast that some families delayed funerals until relatives could pool resources. And still, the presses did not stop. At the very center of the storm stood the mint masters and bankers, figures half bureaucrat, half alchemist. They knew exactly what they were doing. Records showed deliberate ratios: 1 part silver to 3 parts copper, then 1 to 5, then 1 to 10. Each new batch purchased temporary calm at the cost of permanent damage. The illusion of liquidity kept armies marching, even as societies underneath them collapsed like hollowed bone. This is the moment most history books rush past, uncomfortable with the moral clarity of it. Because the crisis was not caused by drought, not by plague, not even primarily by war. It was engineered through policy, through deliberate manipulation of the monetary bloodstream. It was an early demonstration of a truth that will echo forward for centuries. Currency does not collapse because of chaos. Chaos follows when currency collapses. Foreign traders fled the German lands entirely. Amsterdam and Venice became safe harbors for real money. Silver flowed outward like a silent evacuation of trust. What remained inside the empire was motion without meaning. Coins moving faster and faster, buying less and less, until velocity itself became a symptom of panic. Then came the riots. In the market towns, bakers were dragged into the streets and accused of hoarding. Tax collectors were attacked not for their brutality, but for the worthlessness of what they demanded. Soldiers mutinied when their pay could no longer feed their families. And through it all, the authorities issued proclamation after proclamation, insisting that the coin was good, that confidence would return if only the people would calm themselves. Confidence cannot be commanded. The crisis reached its breaking point when entire regions refused official money altogether. Good coin only, merchants declared. Some towns posted lists of acceptable currencies at their gates. Others shut commerce entirely. The monetary system fractured into dozens of competing realities, each with its own rules, its own trust network, its own survival strategy. This is where the Kipper und Wipper era stops being a monetary failure and becomes something darker, a collapse of shared reality. Because money is not metal. Money is belief made portable. And once that belief shatters, society enters a state where everything becomes negotiable again, including loyalty, law, and truth. Only when the devastation became politically uncontrollable did the reversal come. Rulers quietly ended the debasement. The presses slowed. Some regions introduced reformed good coin backed by enforced silver standards. The transition was brutal. Trade froze. Credit vanished. But slowly, painfully, trust began to grow back from the ashes. Yet the damage had already carved deep grooves into European psychology. The middle class, the backbone of any stable economy, had been financially annihilated. Wealth consolidated upward into those with access to real assets: land, metals, foreign currency, political protection. The same pattern that will repeat again and again across centuries. And here, quietly, the forgotten crisis of the 1620s hands us its most unsettling inheritance. Because what the rulers of the Holy Roman Empire did with silver, modern states now do with paper. And increasingly, with digits on screens. Today, debasement no longer requires mints or furnaces. It requires keystrokes. It happened silently at central banks, in policy meetings, in emergency liquidity facilities, in debt auctions no citizen ever watches. The Kipper und Wipper site was loud, visible, metallic. Our version is quiet, mathematical, abstract. But the effect is disturbingly familiar. Value thinning, faster circulation, trust straining under invisible pressure. Back then, people knew their coins were being clipped because they could feel the fraud in their hands. Now, the clipping happens in purchasing power, in savings accounts that earn less than inflation, in wages that lag behind price charts that climb like heart monitors in crisis. The rulers of the 1620s said the debasement was temporary. The architects of modern monetary expansion say the same. Emergency, stabilization, liquidity support. The language evolves. The logic does not. And the most chilling parallel of all is this. In both eras, the public only realizes what has been taken after it is gone. Not at the moment of printing, but at the moment of spending. That is when the illusion finally dies. The tipping point didn't arrive with an explosion. It came quietly, almost politely, wrapped in paperwork and ledgers. One week the coins still rang with some truth. The next, they were dead weights of copper washed in silver skin. Markets froze. Bread doubled overnight. Soldiers refused pay. Taxes were demanded in coins that nobody trusted anymore. And in that final sickening phase, people stopped asking what things cost. They only asked whether anyone would still accept money at all. That is the real sound of collapse. Not a crash, a hush. And when the silence finally broke, it wasn't with reform. It was with authority. Imperial decrees slammed through the chaos. Executions followed counterfeiters through the streets, and entire regions were forced to abandon currencies they had used for generations. New coins were introduced like promises carved in metal, and slowly, painfully, trade began to breathe again. But the trust that had died did not come back with the silver. It never fully does. Whole families were wiped out not by war, not by plague, but by a quiet decision made years earlier to cheat the money. Europe staggered forward after the Kipper und Wipper years, but something invisible had shifted. Rulers learned how powerful money manipulation could be. Merchants learned that currencies could lie. Ordinary people learned the hardest lesson of all, that savings made in honest years can be erased by dishonest policy. The devastation faded from memory, but the technique survived. It simply changed costumes. From clipped silver to printed paper. From paper to digits on screens. Different tools. Same temptation. And that is the part history whispers instead of shouts. Every era believes its version of money is safer, smarter, more scientific than the last. Every era says its crisis is impossible because the system is different now. Yet the rhythm never changes. When states spend beyond their means, when debt becomes political survival, when trust is treated as renewable instead of sacred, the slow debasement always begins again. Not with panic, with convenience, with just a little adjustment, just a little dilution, just enough to get through today. The people of the 1620s watched their world dissolve through their hands as coins lost meaning and prices lost memory. Today, we watch digits multiply on screens while purchasing power quietly evaporates. Then it was silver disappearing from money. Now it is discipline disappearing from policy. The medium changes. The mathematics remains brutal. The Kipper und Wipper collapse was not a medieval anomaly. It was the first clear laboratory of modern monetary failure. A dress rehearsal for fiat excess. A warning etched into history in the language of hunger, riots, and broken markets. And the most dangerous part is not that we forgot it. It's that we convinced ourselves we evolved beyond it. Because systems don't fail when people expect them to. They fail when people trust them most. If this story changed how you see money, stay with this channel. The next chapter of hidden financial history is already unfolding.